I wonder if you've ever found yourself feeling what they call imposter syndrome, looking around, where you find yourself feeling like a fake or a phony, despite the genuine successes that you've achieved. Uh, you're always waiting for someone to say, but you've not done that quite well, or you've missed that out. What are you doing in that position or that role, sort of thing. And they call it imposter syndrome. And if you've ever felt that, then you'll know it can happen within the context of work, relationships, friendships. It can happen in almost any area of life. And we can find ourselves just sort of waiting, that anxiety of waiting to be found out, hoping that no one does. I remember when I was in teaching, talking to someone who said their greatest fear was that someday someone would find them out. You know what I mean? They were a really good teacher, but they never felt that they were. And as we think about this, we see more and more how easy it is for people to describe themselves as living what we might term divided lives, which can so easily bring with it a sense of fear, a sense of imminent failure, a sense of anxiety, always looking to check no one else is, if that makes sense. Mark tells us that from the beginning of his ministry, Jesus was both encountering and ministering to people with divided lives. We see him casting out demons, healing the sick, cleansing the leper. We could go on. Jesus has been encountering people who have been battling against internal conflict. Lives that are not fully their own, if that makes sense. And the Bible would remind us that this internal conflict has been around since Adam and Eve disobeyed God and then hid from him in the garden. And yet it's still with us today. We see nation divided against nation, resulting in conflicts in politics, and the worst case, civil war. We see tensions with economics. We see extremes between excessive wealth and poverty and injustice. We see communities fighting against themselves, leading to the rise of individualism and prejudice and violence. Even within our own lives today, I'm sure we all know people, maybe even ourselves, where our lives are divided, compartmentalized. We're one person at work, another at home. We act one way with certain people and a different way with others. And so easily we can find that life becomes divided into pieces. And flowing out of that, how easy then for our behavior, our beliefs, and our ethics to become situational. I'll behave like this here with this group of people, but I'll behave in a very different way in this context. People today have their work life, their family life, their prayer life, their personal life, their social life. We could go on. And in each, people can be or become slightly different. And yet, if we pause to reflect upon that, even to reflect upon that within our own lives, it doesn't take us long in that reflecting to reach a point where we just desire wholeness, completeness, simplicity. Oh, to be the same in this area and that area and that area of life. We might even say how we would long to just find and to be our true self. Mark records, as do the other gospel writers, they recall that the crowds come to Jesus looking for healing and for wholeness. They come looking for the brokenness and the fracture of life to be removed. Why? Because what they saw in Jesus and what we read about today is that Jesus stands before us as the image of unity and wholeness. He is fully, truly himself. And alongside this, Jesus offers to us what we cannot do for ourselves. He offers to put our house, to put our divided and fragmented lives back together. He offers to us a different image of what life might look like. And yet how quickly we see this is rejected, how quickly today people still reject this. We see his family in our reading from Mark's Gospel. His family make excuses for him. Oh, don't worry, he's out of his mind. We see how the teachers of the law turn things back upon him. He is possessed. What he's doing, offering, is not good. And we too can find ourselves reluctant, hesitant. Can Jesus really put our divided and fragmented lives back together? What will that mean? What will it mean that I don't have to move between partitions in life? How will I move between those various areas of life? And this is a challenging place to be, because if we accept, truly accept what Jesus offers to us, then it means that change is on the way. And if we're honest, none of us really likes change. And so we find excuses. I'm okay, really. Everyone else lives like this. And we, like the people then, we project onto Jesus something of our own inner conflict, our own fears and our own insecurities. And we see how Mark records for us how Jesus indicates that for the religious leaders, their accusations say more about themselves than they do about Jesus. Their accusations become a deflection, a way of avoiding themselves. Why? Because it's not easy to look at ourselves. It's not easy to accept what we are really like, to acknowledge that there sits within us division, inner conflict. And yet, the beginning of wholeness starts with our acknowledging ourself. Jesus said at another occasion, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and weighed down." And if we don't see ourselves as weary and weighed down, why do we need to respond? The beginning of wholeness starts with our acknowledging ourself. Because as we do, Jesus goes on to say, "And I will give you rest, peace within, wholeness." And what we see as we come to Jesus, as we seek to do God's will, so we see that we are included within his family, who are my mother, my brothers, and my sisters, Jesus says. Paul uses the language of adoption. As we come to God, and as we seek to walk in line with his will, so we are given a new name, a new life. We are made whole. This incident that Mark records not only reminds us of ourselves, but it offers us new life, one where we are loved fully and completely, and one where we can be made whole. Amen.